Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's Rocket Lab Weekly. I can't believe this is episode 25. We're 1 week away from 6 months doing this every freaking week. It's pretty crazy. So this week we have Dave G here. His data is in the description box below, his Twitter and YouTube. And Matt is probably on some personal errands. This is what I understand. So he hasn't posted on Twitter in 3 days. We were just talking about it. There was a scammer. What was his name? Who posted?
Rel Matt Money.
Real Matt Money. Exactly. So Matt Money to zero. He's not with us today, but he will tell us next week, I'm sure, what he's up to.
Sure.
Or maybe he just shows up Matt Money style in the middle of the stream.
He does that sometimes.
Yeah. So how was your week, Dave?
Oh, not bad. The weather here kind of sucked. It was funny, like 2 weeks ago, it was feeling like spring. It was super nice out and sunny. And then we had like this absolute blizzard just the other day. And I was shoveling snow again and stuff. And I was like, oh, I thought we were done with this. But yeah, I don't know. Other than that, it was okay. Hopefully it won't last too long.
Cool. And how are your stocks doing? Your NVIDIA must be looking very nice.
Yeah, still very happy with that. Almost a double on it in a pretty short period of time. So now I'm into the phase of kicking myself for not buying more, which it's funny. It's hard to just be happy about a win. And you always immediately jump to, why didn't I buy more of it?
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, obviously Rocket Lab having a little bit of a rough time. But Tesla as well, I'm not loving the price on it right now, but I'm just kind of holding those for the long term. So
yeah, I'm like, if I can somehow get money, I might be buying into Tesla at these levels. It's
there's so many things I want to do, and I don't have cash for it. So
yeah,
but whatever. I guess everyone's like that.
Exactly. All we can do is covered calls on our position to bring in some money. But it's so crazy. This 3 weeks on Rocket Lab, I don't know why I haven't been able to write covered calls.
No?
It's been so illiquid, or I don't know. Like, maybe
the volume's pretty low in terms of options, but I've never actually tried. I've sold a bunch of puts on it. Never sold covered calls, but.
Yeah, I like, because I try to do something that is close to like that is not so far out, and I want to do it at minimum $5 because that's my cost, right?
Oh yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay, sure.
Yeah. And then I even tried like 1 month out, and then I think I went to 2 months out, and it just doesn't go through. Like, there's no liquidity on it.
Yeah, maybe I think you might need the price to move up to like the 450 range, and then you'll get some decent premiums on it.
I think so too. Cool. So interesting things this week, both on Rocket Lab and in the space industry. I prepared a few tweets. Some of them by you, actually, but we take it when we're done with the Rocket Lab stuff.
Yeah.
So first off, we had a successful launch.
Do you mind if I ask you a question, actually, before we get going? I have been given orders from Scott O to ask you. He said, and I heard this as well in your talk with Tim, that you think Peter Beck kind of said Earth observation isn't a great business at somewhere or something like that.
Yeah.
When did he? Do you remember when he said that?
It was in one interview.
I just don't remember hearing that, so I was interested to hear where that came from.
Oh, I watched so many interviews.
I know. I had the same problem.
Yeah, I distinctively remember that it was one interview where he was basically saying that those companies, like, they're public, so you can see their businesses, and they're not good businesses, something like this.
Okay. I don't know. Anyway, I was just curious. Maybe if you come across it later on, you can send it over. Or but
Yeah. You know, it's one of those when it's like a 50-minute interview, and then
Mhm.
it's like he just mentions it. So it's like I don't even know how to look for it because
Yeah,
it's
I have
not.
that problem too sometimes where I'm like, I'm making a video and I'm like, I'm positive he said this, but
Yeah,
I kind of want to go back and find the exact quote so I can show everyone and prove it. But just finding the quote sometimes is like so much of a hassle. But anyway, I was just curious if you remembered.
yeah. If it comes to me, I let you know. But at this point, I think it's almost impossible to find that
Okay.
one. But I'm positive that he said it.
And you're sure it was like Earth observation and not just maybe some other Spacs or something like that?
I
Anyway, not
think
a big
so.
deal.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. So basically, Rocket Lab launch. We had this year's first launch from Wallops in Virginia. And let me see. I thought I was sharing. Here we go. Um, so how did you watch the launch, and what did you think about it?
I embarrassingly did not stay up to watch the launch. But I guess you could take that the other way, that I'm just so confident they'll succeed that I don't feel I need to stay up to 2 a.m. my time and, watch it live and make sure it goes off.
I have to tell you, I was nervous about this one because I'm also so confident about the New Zealand team, but I was wondering, like, I mean, it's the same rocket, right? But
Yeah.
it's a different team, or do they like fly out the New Zealand team or some of the leaders in New Zealand to launch from Wallops? Or
Yeah, I think it's a different team, but yeah, I don't have all the details on that.
yeah, I was nervous about this one because
Yeah.
also the stock price is so low, and I was like, oh, if we would have an issue, it would be very painful on the stock. And then I don't know, but it went picture perfect, and a lot of us, when we saw this picture, we were looking behind what's
Mm-hmm.
happening there, and we got quite some updates about Neutron, and they also shared this picture that they are making the concrete, and they have the water tower that has come. So there is a lot of developments, but
Yeah.
Peter Spice, Adam Spice, went on a conference, the Roth, whatever it was. I don't even know what that one stands for, but it's a Roth 36th annual conference, I think it was
Sure.
called.
Just like investor conference. Yeah.
Exactly. And he changed the timeline to April, May for the hot fire test. And Scott O actually made a video where he said that Firefly is launching in 2025, and they have already tested their engine. And there was another company who's also flying in 2025, 2026, and they also have the engine already tested. And he's like, Neutron is supposed to fly this year,
Yeah.
and the engine test is not even happening. So he was like raising it as a red flag. And it's more and more a red flag also to me. Something has to be up because this was supposed to happen last year in December, and it feels like it just keeps being pushed out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's something specific that's up. There were those rumors even a while back, going back to last year. I don't know if you remember, it was on Stock Twits. There was someone posting saying, yeah, I was having beers with some Rocket Lab employees and he said Archimedes isn't going good and whatever. But I don't know. Sometimes I get a little flack whenever I say I'm worried about Archimedes, but you do. Like, even if going to a company like SpaceX, which has clearly been successful, I don't know if you remember, like, when they first started firing their Raptor engine, but it was like years before Starship flew. So, and then obviously you've got Relativity and Firefly and all these others. Usually over a year out before the rocket flies, you see the engine firing. So I think it's justifiable to, be a little concerned and follow it more closely.
Yeah.
I know he
Yeah. I
said
mean,
like, they're not going to be putting a lot of stress on the engine and all this kind of stuff. But personally, for me at this point, like, it's cool to see the pictures of the infrastructure. I'm not worried about the infrastructure. I'm not worried about the factories and all this. The only thing I'm really concerned about is the Archimedes in terms of pushing it longer. And that's a good question as well that New Blocks is asking. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was a longer time frame than we have right now to December, when the Rutherford engine was firing for the first time for Electron.
Yeah, I also have the same as you, that at first I was like, yeah, they did say that it's the least innovative part of the whole development process, so they're not worried about the engine.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not be worried about the engine if they would be keeping the timelines.
The thing is, they're usually very good about hitting their deadlines. And this one, the goalpost has been moved 3 times now, or 2 times.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So we can agree that that part of Rocket Lab is not doing good, or not looking good, at least until we get further information. But one thing that is looking good is Q1 of this year, because Rocket Lab is one of those companies where you can see sort of their production. So we already know that they made 4 launches this year. As far as I understand, it's the highest that they have done in a quarter. I saw a tweet.
Yeah, I believe that is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is already a record. And as for their Q1 guidance, they guided for between 92 to 98 million dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was adjusted, right?
Yeah, like because at the end of Q4 they said something like 96 to 104 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after the conference, or the Q1 earnings conference, then they changed it to 92 to 98.
Right. Okay.
I guess because they lost a launch.
The one launch, yeah. Okay. So that is
exactly.
taking that into account. But will the analysts update their numbers going into it? Yeah.
Exactly. So but it's scary, or like, I'm wondering 2 ways. So are they updating the change, and are they thinking with how good they are doing? Because the rocket launches, we know that the 4 is in the bag, and then the space systems part is not weather dependent, is not everything is in-house, and I feel that one is a very, very controllable part of their production. So it's So
I generally have good confidence in space systems. Sometimes it's a little frustrating when you follow other stocks. You have some indicators. You can, like, with Tesla, they get, like, insurance registrations and stuff like that. And other companies, you have some idea, but we're kind of just, hoping that everything has gone well this quarter, which it usually does for space systems. So.
Yeah, so it's funny because the controllable part is the one that you cannot see, and then the non-controllable part is the rocket launch, which is very easy to see. So my point is that the 92 million should be very easily in the bag. The 98 million, that's depending on how good the space system production goes. And even if we just take the low end of guidance, we are more than 60, or I think maybe even 70% higher than Q1 last year.
Okay.
And that is very, very, very good expansion. So we know that this part of Rocket Lab is going good. And then you raise this about analysts. So did the analysts adjust their numbers to the 100, like basically down to this number, or maybe they are not even aware that we are 70+% up? Maybe they're expecting.
You don't know. Yeah. And some of the questions you listen to on the earnings calls makes you wonder, like, how closely are they even following the company? Because sometimes they'll ask things that has been answered many times before in other places, but
like this lady asked Peter Beck if they're going to launch Neutron from New Zealand, and he
I know. When I heard that, I was just like, come on, this is what we're wasting our question on during the earnings call.
The same.
And nobody asked about the reuse of Electron and got more details on that one. But anyway.
Yeah, Yes, so I think we're looking like Q1 is going to be very, very good. How do you think the stock is going to react to that? Is there going to be like any motion, or the whole Wall Street only cares about Neutron right now? All eyes on Neutron.
I think it'll be pretty positive. I mean, the growth, if they hit, I mean, even if they missed slightly, is still like amazing growth, especially going back to Q1 of last year. Sometimes you get these funny moves, though, where it's like if a company forecasts 100% growth and then they hit 90% growth, the stock goes down, and you're thinking, well, 90% is still pretty amazing. But I guess it's the expectations piece. But personally, I feel like the stock is priced already at like, I feel like it's priced for a miss, or like, you know, like, I don't know.
I think currently it's priced for like Neutron never flying and Electron blowing up, and something like that. I can't make sense of the current price.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I guess if it did move down on news of like the 92 or whatever $1 million quarter, I guess crazier things have happened, but again, it would make no sense to me. So
yeah. I mean, because you know, usually they say that if you move up, like the stock price goes up before earnings, like that means that the expectations are very, very high for earnings, and you need to report very, very good numbers, right? And
right.
And normally when the stock goes down before the earnings, that's when you can be very, very calm going into earnings, because even if they say very bad things, it's somehow like already priced in. And we have gone from like 650 to 4 in like before this earnings, while production is going like 60 something percent up. So we should be like, they can say a lot of bad things in this earnings, like, and the stock should still go up.
I continue to believe that maybe we're in a range, and we're probably in a range, but I don't see us breaking through the bottom of that range, and we're kind of towards the bottom of it right now. I would say the bottom is like 380. So I don't know. Even if there's a miss, personally, I don't think it'll drop below 380, but you know, guessing the short-term movement of a stock is usually not a winning game.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. Let me see. I think this was all my Rocket Lab news. No, there was one more thing. Did you listen to this Roth conference?
Yes, I believe I did.
Okay.
That's with Adam, right?
Yeah. Did you catch the part that they talked about the space applications, and he said that they're not going into the internet?
Yeah. So there was some confusion about this, because I was talking to someone, and then someone said they're not going into communications. And then when I listened to it, I heard like it's not going to be broadband to compete with Starlink.
Exactly.
To me, that doesn't rule out with some other kind of communications. But yeah, I think that's a prudent move. I don't think they have the capital for that kind of a thing. So I never thought they would, but it's good to get that confirmation.
Yeah. But what was super interesting to me is that he said that we are looking at some applications that can be done with dozens or maybe hundreds of satellites.
Mm-hmm.
And he also said that the new acquisition that they will announce, it will leave like breadcrumbs into which area that they're going to go into.
Yeah.
And when he said this number, I got like, you know, this little light bulb, and I'm like, oh my God, we can actually do some sort of a calculation, even though it's insanely inaccurate, of how much it's going to cost, you know, because I've always been so worried that the space application is going to mean that they will need to raise capital again, because if they need to do a constellation with, you know, thousands of satellites, then
something I've wondered about as well.
Yeah. And the minute he said this, I was like, oh my God, okay, because let's say that we have Neutron, and what they're going to do is they're going to fly Neutron, like sell Neutron full price to a customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That this is what SpaceX was doing. And then the Neutron ship is basically paid, and then it comes back, they refurbish it, they fly it again for their own satellite system, right? So at that time, the like they're not paying 30 million for the launch. They're paying, I don't know, probably 5 million, like
Yeah, like it kind of
refueling and
subsidizes their launch. Yeah.
exactly. And then I was thinking like, okay, maybe they can do 20, 30 satellites in one launch, right? So it's like you have 5 million per 20, 30, let's say 30 satellites. And let's say that it's 100 satellites that they need,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where I have like the biggest uncertainty in the calculation is how much should the satellites cost, because we know that the SDA satellites are like 18 million a pop, I think, but that's very highly specialized military.
Yeah.
And I don't know what other satellites actually cost, so I was thinking maybe 1 million per satellite, or maybe 2 million per satellite. Can that be? Maybe even that's way over.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you compare that to Starlink, that's expensive. I did hear, I think it was Scott who did a bunch of calculations and came to the conclusion that they charged Varda about 3 million for that photon that the Varda capsule went on. So,
Yeah,
I mean, obviously they would be probably be a very different architecture, could be like a flat stack type thing or something like that to
yeah,
fit
yeah,
more
yeah,
in the fairing. But yeah, maybe in the low single digit millions is more feasible depending
yeah,
on what it is they're doing.
yeah. So let's say 1.5 million. Then the 100 satellites would be 150 million, and it would be on 3 launches, which is 15 million. So then let's round it up to 200 million. Like that's what the space applications would cost them, right?
Okay.
But it wouldn't happen on one go. Like it would be spread over a year, 2, maybe 3 years. And if they're cash flow positive, and maybe they have a little bit of cash still in the company,
Yeah.
then they might be able to do it without actually raising capital.
It'd be
And
nice.
yeah,
It would be like, a relatively modest constellation. Because one thing is I was kind of thinking there would be a lot of internal demand for Neutron. Like when you look at SpaceX, the vast majority of Falcon 9 launches are now Starlink. So if we're talking dozens of satellites for Rocket Lab, then they'll still, I think the majority of launches will still have to be customer launches, which I guess
yeah,
is fine, but
yeah,
it's just a little less ambitious in terms of their constellation. But I'm sure it could be a nice little business.
yeah, yeah. So anyways, at least it was like the first time when there was like something to calculate on, like it wasn't
Yeah.
a fog. And yeah, because when it's thousands of satellites, it can be billions, and then you're like, okay, how the f are we going to, like we're the small, like less than 2 billion in market cap, like how the f are we going to handle
Yeah, you're not
a
building a
billion
40,000 satellite constellation or
yeah,
something. It's
exactly.
just
And we still can think with the revenue, because we didn't get any clues on who is the customer, what is the service, but at least we can estimate the cost. And I think that
sure.
that's it was a big, I mean, at least for me, it was like a big thing, like, oh my god, they said this. We're like halfway through the fog,
Yeah, well, we got it's something. I feel like we'll be trying to piece together these details for the next couple years on this. Like we're not gonna know anytime soon, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we look at Falcon 9, because I think that Neutron has to be reusable for this to happen, right? And Falcon 9 took, I think, 4 or 5 years to become like landing and reusable, if I'm not mistaken.
it took a while. Like I don't think
Yeah,
Neutron should take that long though, because that was kind of added in after for Falcon 9, where Neutron's kind of designed in from the get-go. Like Peter did even say they're going to attempt to bring back the first launch, whereas Falcon 9, like they didn't even consider attempting that for quite a while.
yeah,
So
that's true. That's true.
and they didn't have any re-entry experience. Like at least Rocket Lab has some re-entry experience with Neutron and stuff like that, or Electron. But yeah, they may not be successful on the first few. But
Yeah, there probably won't be. I mean, that would be an insane feat if they would, but nothing stopping them from attempting, right?
Yeah.
They
Every
should
time
be
you fail, you
attempting.
learn something. So
Exactly. I can see in the comments, I don't find out the exact comment, but somebody seems to think that there is imminent contract announcements, both for Neutron and both for satellite constellation. Is there something that you know
I
that
don't
we
know
don't?
anything. I did
No.
see that comment. I think he said it was non-insider information, but I don't really understand if it's not public and it's not insider, then where's it coming from? Unless it's coming from the
unknown sources, unknown reliable sources. CNN.
I guess, yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe a customer is coming from that. Yeah, here it
It
is.
could be. It could be.
Cyberprince. He's I follow him on Twitter as well. He's sometimes got interesting tweets. But I mean, if it is true, that'd be nice.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. And one last thing about Rocket Lab. I don't know if you saw this tweet. Ashley Vance tweeted something, and then Francisco Ramirez wrote that it would be nice to make. Yeah, he tweeted that Rocket Lab is really reaching its stride.
Oh, was it Francisco that got that reply from Ashley? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was at least. Yeah. So apparently there's a documentary or a documentary series coming about Rocket Lab that somehow Ashley Vance has his hands in.
Was that only Rocket Lab, or was that kind of about all the companies from the book?
It was not clear from the tweet,
okay.
But I got the idea. The way I read the tweet is that it is only Rocket Lab, because some of the companies there, or most of the companies that the book talks about, is not as successful as Rocket Lab. I mean, like Astra is technically bankrupt. I mean, Firefly is still going. Planet Labs is doing
but
okay,
I mean,
I guess.
Even though Astra is going private and all that, if they were in there and filming during that whole process, I think that would still be fascinating to watch. If you're sitting in on the meetings and they're talking about like, okay, what do we do and all this. But yeah, apparently Francisco also shared an article with you if you're interested. Just I think someone saying that they're going to be worth $22 in, I guess,
let me check
price forecast. But yeah, to me, all the companies would make more sense as well, as Cyberface is saying.
I have a confession to make to Francisco. I've been on hockey all weekend with my son, and
I think he literally just sent it to you now, but
yeah,
might be on Twitter or something.
Yeah, it's here. I opened it. I'm sharing it now. Are you able to? Okay, first of all, who is this? 7 Investing. Never heard of them.
Yeah, I don't know.
So Rocket Lab stock is, Rocket Lab stock is worth $22 and has a 453% upside. Here's why. My discounted cash flow analysis. Rocket stock is worth 22.
I mean, usually I think I'd want to go over this kind of before we were live before sharing it with
you,
just to make sure
it's going
reputable and everything. But it seems like they do have a DCF here and everything, so definitely probably worth reading.
Yeah, but it's the DCF is, I mean, we can't check their here assumptions. Okay, at least we can see what the assumptions are. Modest growth in actual launches from 22 to 52.
I think 52 in 2026 is a little too
aggressive. Yeah,
aggressive.
And in the Roth conference, Adam Spice said that they're not aiming to go to more than the high 20s.
I thought I heard like 30, 35 somewhere.
Okay. Maybe I'm mixing it up, but definitely not 50s.
Yeah, I've never heard 50s.
Yeah. An average of 800 electrons, so that's good. That will decline. No, that will decline to 6 million per launch. I don't know about that.
Yeah. I don't know. Probably have to go through all this offline and see what we can take away from it. It is a very bullish valuation, though.
It is. Okay, we're gonna look at it. I'm very happy every time Francisco sends me stuff. I have just been, he sent me some other stuff also that I haven't been able to look at yet. I became a hockey parent. It's crazy.
I saw that. I loved it because I have very fond memories of playing hockey as a kid and going to tournaments and hanging out with the team and all that stuff is great. So yeah.
But it's a crazy investment from the parents. Like
I bet.
I never understood this before, and like I literally drove to another country on Friday, slept in a really weird Airbnb because it was booked in the last second. It was like someone's basement,
right.
and like to arrive to the Airbnb, like we had to like walk in front of their living room where they had like this big glass panels, so they were like in their PJs having dinner. And then my son was like, "Dad, why are we here? Like this is someone's house,
Yeah.
And then we went down to the basement, and it's like full of these like shit pipes, and you heard every time they like flushed the toilet, and it was crazy. And then all Saturday I was just like, "Do you need water? Okay." And then like film his play, like SMS the mother, it's nuts.
I'm sure he appreciates it.
Yeah, I hope so. And I get a lot of joy out of seeing him play. But if you guys are wondering why I'm not able to add to my Rocket Lab position, it's because I'm buying hockey gear, and
it's not cheap. I still play. It cost me
really
like over $600 a season. We just lost in the playoffs. I was very disappointed, by the way.
Wow. But
otherwise I wouldn't be free right now. I'd probably be playing hockey.
Oh my God, that's awesome. What's your position?
Left wing usually.
Okay.
I had a horrendous season though. Couldn't score this year. It was bad. Anyway.
But is it like an amateur adult league, or how do you?
Yeah, it's like a men's league. They kind of call it a beer league because you're with I've been playing on the same team for about 10 years now. Mostly the same group of guys. Every now and then we have one new guy. Someone has to leave. But, we go, we compete, we get a workout, we have a beer after the game and hang out, and it's fun. Huh? Complain about the referees.
Okay, sounds awesome.
Yeah.
The Rocket Lab world and family is very strange. Involves a lot of countries and continents, and seems like we have hockey in common. I've never played hockey myself. It's just my son. I know how to skate, but if we would play, you would probably just tackle me, and I would just get injured.
I'm definitely slower than I used to be, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Awesome. So where were we? We were on this documentary. Mm-hmm. Did we finish? Like, do you think it will be bullish for the stock if there is a documentary released?
I can't imagine it being bad. I can't imagine Peter Beck coming off like he doesn't know what he's doing or anything like that. So I would say any additional exposure is probably good. I don't know how big it will be, but I would say it's a net positive.
Yeah, because like anyone who asks me about Rocket Lab, I'm like, yeah, read this book by Ashley Vance, like that will, like, that's a very good part of your research. Yeah. But I feel like a lot of people don't read books, and then it will be so easy to like, okay, but check out this documentary and then tell me what you think about. So I think it potentially can bring a lot of new eyes and a lot of new people
if it gets popular, that would be great, I think, for them and the whole space sector when it comes to investing.
Yeah. So Francisco says the other thing I shared with Vince was that Florida will be adding 2 new space sports, one in Tyndall, I don't know how you say that, Air Force Base, and one in Homestead Air Force Base. I think that's good news for space stocks. Yeah, I mean, as far as I understand, Florida is pretty booked out, and it's very hard for new space companies to get any new launch slots in. So it must be good news for space. So I think this is all the Rocket Lab stuff for this week, but there was very interesting things because like in the space industry, because it seems like the Spacs are making a comeback, and you actually did a very good video about it this week.
Yeah.
It's a bit late here.
Wasn't one of my top performers, but I always expect that when it's not, focused only on Rocket Lab. But anyway.
Yeah.
Glad you liked it.
Yeah, it's the perils of YouTube. But so I think that it's very bullish for Rocket Lab if there is other Spac companies that are doing great. So could you tell us like what companies are doing great and why they're doing great, and if anything is worth taking a look at as investors?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when I started looking into space companies, there's very few like new pure space companies that really seemed like they were like the risk reward, that weren't completely risky, like insanely risky even. Planet Labs has always had a decent cash balance, and I like the plan and the vision, but the growth has fallen off a little bit this year, which is a little unexpected. But Redwire had quite good results in their recent earnings call. That stock's performed quite well. They were adjusted EBITDA positive, so not net income positive or anything like that, but it's like the first step on the road to becoming cash flow positive. I tried my hand at a quick basic DCF on them, and I decided I don't think they will get positive income this year, probably more like 2025. And personally, I see stocks move a lot when they go cash flow positive. So I was thinking of maybe even hopping into that one a little later in the year, closer to when I think they'll go positive, and maybe you get a nice little bump. Spire had an absolutely amazing few weeks. They had good results. They announced this partnership with NVIDIA to use AI to help with their weather predictions and all this kind of stuff. And then as soon as AI came into the picture, the stock doubled. It was crazy. They were opportunistic and decided to raise capital at those high levels, which I thought was a smart move. I understand some shareholders weren't too happy about it, and that caused the stock to come back down. But I think, for example, if Rocket Lab, when they were raising capital, if they could have done it at the price of 8 or 10 or whatever instead of where it was, like, I think that would have been great. So this company had doubled within like a week on this announcement. So I think they took advantage of that, and they'll be in a much stronger cash position. And then Intuitive Machines, obviously, they did a lot of things that I thought were impressive with this lunar lander that got a ton of attention for them and a ton of attention for their stock. The stock went kind of ballistic while the lander was on its way and going there, and came back down a little bit. But then again, their earnings were pretty decent. I thought they just had their own results. The one thing that kind of was scary about Intuitive Machines is they revealed that at the end of Q4 of 2023, they only had like $5 million in the bank. So I saw that and I was like, wow, that's like very risky territory. But now they're up to like 55 million. So a little bit safer ground. They have 2 more missions for NASA that are supposed to be coming up. That's IM2 and IM3. Those will also be lunar landers. They're bidding to build a rover for NASA as well as like a joint partnership. So it's been an extremely volatile stock, but yeah, some of these SPACs starting to perform and show that maybe they can, make it, and which is nice because we've seen so many just kind of fail and have to go out of business with the Virgin Orbit, the Astra, I think it was Momentous, and there's been some others along the way. So yeah, good to see.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that this is very, very good for Rocket Lab for like actually in many ways, because one of them is if these companies survive, they can be Rocket Lab customers, because Rocket Lab has the stated goal of having, quite a high percentage. I don't remember if they have an exact number that but at one point I think it was like 50% of everything that went to space had something of like from Rocket Lab.
Yeah, I don't remember here. I thought it was more like 30, but yeah, the goal Peter Beck stated is that eventually they want everything going into space to have some sort of Rocket Lab component or something in there. So
yeah.
so if these companies are successful, then yes, I think it would stand to reason that would sure be good for Rocket Lab as well.
Yeah. And then it's also good from the angle that if investors make money in space stocks, then that spurs a lot of new investment into space stocks, like in the form of new space startups, which can also become Rocket Lab customers. And it can spur also a lot of investment trust in Rocket Lab, like as the stock itself, because investors can say that, yeah, look, like there is, like not all the space companies are a financial equivalent of black holes. And, you know, like there is actually...
I do feel like there has been this sense, especially among like more conservative investors, where they're just like, pure space company, I'm not touching it. Like, you know, it just takes too much capital to get going. It's too risky. They won't do it. So maybe with some more success in the industry, it'll be more investable for a wider range of people.
Yeah. So I think that it's fantastic news. However, there's like some of them that I looked into, like for example on Intuitive Machines. I actually saw the video where you were talking about that you might invest into Intuitive Machines, or that you're looking
as a trade. Yeah. So
yeah.
I've decided to become a little bit more active doing trades, because I feel like I've been following the space industry so closely for a while now that I might as well try it a little bit. Intuitive Machines, I don't know if I would buy and hold at this point, but I was thinking, like, for example, when the next lander goes up, we saw that massive move for IM-1, and maybe it won't be the same because it won't be the first one and all. There won't be as much excitement, but it might be fun to throw a little bit of money in there before the lander goes, just to see what happens. Probably won't do options, so just buy the stock. That way,
I was just going to say put like 1,000 into call options, and then
you could do that.
Let it.
If you were very confident, it would be, you know, higher reward. But if I just buy the stock and it doesn't work out, then I can just sell the shares, maybe end up with a little bit of a loss. Where the call options, it's like, okay, I'm either gonna double plus or I'm losing all the money. So that would be a different way to play it. But yeah, I'll be watching it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just on like, I think Planet Labs is the best looking one for me, at least, as like, because for example on Intuitive Machines, when I was looking at their balance sheet, they were very low on cash, as you said.
Yeah.
And then to get cash, they have done some deals that is very, like, they did a convertible offering, and then they did another offering that I've never seen. Like, I had to look up what it is, and it was something like, if I remember correctly, it was something like they made an agreement that they will get money, but it's connected to milestones, and that they have to, like, at every quarter, like the auditors have to adjust, like if they're hitting the milestones, and then if they're off, then they have to like adjust the capital, and then it becomes like a plus or a minus, and it's like super complicated. And I was like, how much shares is there? Like, what is the, like, if you buy, you know, like if I buy 1,000 shares, like, what do I own of the company? Because it seems like there's like possible new shareholders from the convertible, and then there's like possible new shareholders from this other, and then it was just, I was like, this doesn't feel good, you know?
Yeah, that was, I will say, and I was looking at their financials and stuff, I found it very confusing. I'm not too familiar with that raise and the structure you were talking about, but yeah, I was looking at it, and then so they have this other line, which is other income, and for some reason it had jumped from like 5 million to like 30 million, and it's not like on your normal revenue line, it's like other, and I'm like, what is this? Where's it coming from? Is it going to continue? Is it a one-off? I don't know. And I was having trouble figuring all that out. So yeah, some of these reasons are why I wouldn't just buy and hold it long term. It'd be more of a
Yeah.
fun little trade for me. And I like to, I wouldn't put money in it that I'm not okay, like being very risky with. So, but I do sometimes enjoy making these little trades.
Yeah. They're fun. They're fun. Yeah, so I think Planet Labs is the one that has, like quite solid growth, income. I mean, they have
Yeah.
been quite stable. It's just
For a
the
while, I was talking to a lot of space investors who thought like Planet Labs was the better investment than Rocket Lab. And there was some good arguments to back that up, to be honest. But this past year, the revenue growth slowed considerably. So instead, they're trying to cut costs, and they're still trying to hit their break even when they said they were originally going to go profitable, and just do it by really like tightening their belts and stuff. But I would love to see, and I do have a small position in them still, but I'd love to see the growth go back to where it used to be.
Yeah, you know what scares me with like not Rocket Lab, but Planet Labs and many of these space services companies is that like SpaceX or Rocket Lab, I feel can just disrupt them at any moment that they want to. Like if Rocket Lab would want to go into the Earth observation space,
Yeah.
like it would be impossible because as far as I understand, like Planet Labs doesn't manufacture satellites and don't do launches. Like they just offer the service. So they like contract the making of the satellites to a company, and then they contract the launch to another company.
Is that
And then
okay? Yeah, I haven't
maybe
done a
they
dive
make
on
their
how
own
those.
satellites.
I mean, I know they have their like Pelicans and stuff they're working on, but yeah, I don't know if those are like subcontracted out or the structure of whether they manufacture it themselves and stuff. But definitely they don't have the full vertical integration piece, which
Yeah.
is one of the things that draws me to Rocket Lab over them. Even though like at the time when I invested, I think Rocket Lab did have a higher price to sales multiple.
Yeah. Cool. So we got a question here from Pete B. Rocket Lab share price tumbled from the start of 2022 to all-time lows as the interest rate started to increase exponentially. What do you think will happen when the tide turns and interest rates start to drop?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I don't know for sure if interest rates are what caused that drop in the first place, though. It's possible. Like it definitely can't hurt. But yeah, I don't know for sure. I don't know if I would say the interest rates are what should drive a big growth. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like I think it will for sure not hurt. Like it will be a
Yeah.
tailwind for the stock price. But to be honest, I've been very, very humbled on Rocket Lab because it feels like whatever I think short term on the stock price, like the opposite happens. Like
Yeah.
at,
It's unpredictable short term. I mean,
yeah,
and I sat through it on the other side as well, where
you have been
it was a
riding this
while back when
donkey.
it went from 4 to 8, and I was like, holy crap, I wasn't expecting this. Obviously it came back down, but I held through that whole time as well.
That's what proves you're a long-term investor. I actually posted about it that I really respect people because I've only been 6 months in Rocket Lab, but the people who have been through this up and down and they're still as bullish as ever on the company, that's very, very nice to see. I mean, Matt has been holding Rocket Lab since they de-SPAC'd.
Yeah, that's wild. That's a long time.
Yeah. And think that he's like more bullish now than he was. I mean, like granted, I think he didn't start with like a huge position, and he was like adding to his position, but still, I mean, I would be, I don't know, like that would definitely test me, like if you buy something for $10 and then it went, I think,
for
to
sure
15 at one point, and then it's like 4 years later and you're down to 4.
I mean, let me ask you this though. Maybe I'm gonna make some people mad here and piss them off, but so rewind the clock to when they went public, and there was no talk of like, I don't believe there was any talk of their own constellation. Electron.
There was.
Was there back then?
Yeah, I
Okay.
was actually very recently looking at their presentation, that they presented to investors before they de-SPACed, and it was very vague, but it said that their end goal is to go into space application.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if I would have paid $10 for the stock when they went public.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess is my controversial view, talking to a bunch of Rocket Lab fans, which I am one, but very rarely,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think. And I have, by the way, purchased companies that have just recently IPO'd a couple times. Never once has it worked out for me. In the first year, never once has buying a recently public company worked out. So I've seen it so many times with these companies, and I'm like, I'm just going to wait at least a year when anything comes public. And that's probably going to be true of Sierra Space if they come public, and other ones as well.
Yeah, but you see, it's so interesting because also, like, let's say that they would have IPO'd at a different time and not before the COVID crash and then the
Right.
COVID money printing, and because maybe then, because I mean, I guess you could, like, what's interesting with Rocket Lab is if you look at that presentation that they gave, they're almost exactly on the dot with the revenue targets that they set at that time. I think you even said that, was it Redwire or that, like, one of them that you were looking at?
Redwire was way off. Yeah.
Yeah, I
They're
think I'm
projecting
gonna
less than half for 2025 now, I think.
look.
Something.
I'm gonna try to pull up Rocket Labs if I can find
They've
it.
been very accurate.
Yeah.
The one criticism is some people feel like, okay, they just bought that revenue because they added all these other companies to their space systems. But
But in some industries, like, I can see this, like, if you box yourself in and you say, like, all non-organic revenue is bad, but in the space industry, like, how do you, because, like, when you buy heritage, like, let's say that you make satellites, and then if Rocket Lab would not buy heritage, but they would invest into their own factory, they would hire their own people, like, who would buy from them? Because the satellites, you kind of, like, you don't get a second shot. Like, once they're in space, they have to work, right?
yeah,
And then I think that it has an insane amount of value to be able to just buy something that has the heritage and the customer trust with it. And I think it just shows the management's brilliance of.
I think they're certainly very savvy investments and purchases. I saw a couple people when debating the stock, criticizing it, saying, well, they had this amazing growth in that first year, but this is not me talking, this is them basically saying, well, all they did was they capitalized on the hype, got a ton of cash, bought a bunch of companies, and then of course they're going to show these growth numbers when they've just bought 4 companies. But anyway,
So I think I found the PDF that they. No,
I do have it saved somewhere but yeah, they're pretty well on target with their projections. One of the only space companies that really hit their projections from their SPAC. Most of them were way off.
Yeah, so this is their space is open for business.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at it the other day, and now you will see my.
By the way, did you see? I think Adam Spice was at another conference recently, and he had an eye patch on.
I saw people commenting on
Okay.
it. He was a pirate.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't know why my computer is freezing and is super slow going down on this. But what's crazy is that here, I think they're already talking about Neutron.
Yeah, I think they kind of said the main reason for going public was to raise capital for Neutron.
Yeah. You see here, space applications is already.
Okay, so they did. Okay, so my bad. They were already talking about it at that point. So that would be a point in favor of investing in them at the SPAC.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the $10 price was because I think that.
But it was a different time, right? Like, yeah. It was very lofty things were going public and getting massive amounts of valuations with no revenue. It's just, I guess, what the environment was. So
yeah, I was gonna say that, like, for me, fair value for them is probably like $8 today. And like now we're with very high interest rates, like, so maybe at the time of the IPO, like, I agree that the $10 was like kind of a nosebleed valuation, but like with the space applications, it's like, like if you buy now, you're not taking a lot of risk, like,
oh no,
because
I would buy now any day of the week.
Exactly. So like, I think that at $10, it was like you could justify buying it, but it was like a lot of things had to go right for it to
Sure.
be a good investment.
Yeah, you're
Oh my
probably
God,
looking towards the end for charts and stuff like that. That's where they usually put these. Peter B
yeah.
makes a funny comment. He just needs to say AI in the next earning call, and then we'll get a nice boost. So
Exactly.
I think that's, yeah. This chart, by the way, is what I was actually kind of basing my projections off of originally when I made my first DCF for Rocket Lab, going off of these numbers, and they've generally been pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because look how, like, if you look at their
So the
numbers.
there's one, and I interrupt a little bit, but one thing that they weren't accurate with, if you look, is launch is in red and space systems is in gray. And they have launch making way more revenue than space systems. And that's kind of opposite even. So they were quite bullish on launch when they went public, but it's really been the space systems. But I mean, they're saying 2024, $450 million. Look, we're looking at an almost $100 million Q1. So, I mean, we're not out of the ballpark.
And in the Q1 earnings call, they said that they have this one, like 1.046, I think, billion in backlog, and they expect to deliver 41% of that. And if you do the math, it's something like $416 million.
Yeah.
And in 2023, I think they did 200. I don't have the numbers in my head, but I think 275. So they were like a tiny bit higher, and then I think they were quite a lot higher in 2022. And this difference, like if they do like 420 instead of 450, for me, like especially 4 years out, for me that's like basically hitting it.
No, it's good. It's great.
So it's really incredible to see.
Yeah, when I looked at Redwire, as I said, I forget exactly which year, whether it might even be 2024. They had originally projected like 700. It was going to be less than half. Maybe it was either 2024 or 2025. They're projecting right now 300 million, and originally they had said closer to 700. And I was like, how does this happen? Is it?
Yeah.
Are they wrong, or are they just trying to pump up the numbers to get more money when they go public? But yeah.
I mean, in some businesses, like we have also, like I'm in the real estate business, right? And we have also had, like, on every different project we have a different investor, and on one project we have like a 3-year delay, and it's because we didn't get the permit, and the investor was not happy at that time, and he also said this, that like, this was your projections, like what is happening, and then it's like, yeah, I understand, but it's like, if we don't get the permit, like we like there's not much like
To be fair to Rocket Lab, they were waiting on NASA for FTS software for Wallops for like 2 years. That delayed that launch complex coming online, which means they couldn't launch, haste missions or any of these other stuff from this other. So there may be some reasons out of their control why the launch number is, lower, but Space Systems has really made up for it.
Yeah, so amazing company. I wanted to say something, but it basically slipped my mind now. But I think we went through everything. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, or
No, I don't think so. Yeah,
I think we
covered it all.
both agree that the stock is at a very, very not risky point. So if people, okay, I don't want to give financial advice,
I know.
but if so we change the wording. So if I didn't have a full position on Rocket Lab, it's like kind of a no-brainer time to buy at this point.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a case of the stock being really stupid and the company executing really, really well. I know what I forgot to say. Have you seen Lucid Motors, like how much they missed by compared to their presentation when
I
they...
have not. I know they've kind of been a bit of a train wreck, but I haven't seen the numbers.
It's like at this year, according to their presentation, they should be making 100,000 cars, and they're making 9,000.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like a 90% miss.
That's the kind of stuff that bothers me as an investor.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to say that I think, you know, when a company goes public, like you want to PR up, and you know, you want, so it's really incredible how well Rocket Lab is following these.
Yeah, they've really hit it. It's only one of the few.
Yeah. Cool. It's been amazing. I really appreciate that you could come today. And
no problem.
We see what has happened to Matt. I think maybe he bought some new real estate to be able to watch more launches from Virginia.
Maybe he'll host us one day.
Exactly.
Neutron party.
Exactly. So thanks everyone for watching. Dave's YouTube and Twitter is in the comment section. Please make sure you follow him, and see you guys next week.
See ya.